St. Brigid Memorial Hospital was not abandoned in the way people expected abandoned places to be. There were no shattered windows, no graffiti scrawled across the brick, no obvious signs of chaos left behind. It stood intact on the edge of the city, its structure solid, its windows dark but unbroken. From the outside, it looked as though it were simply closed for the night. Inside, it was worse. Some lights still worked in forgotten corridors. The emergency generators still hummed faintly when the power flickered. In certain places, the floors were cleaner than they should have been, and the silence was not empty. It felt deliberate, like a held breath that had never been released. Nurse Elena Ruiz told herself she was imagining things. She had worked night shifts long enough to understand how exhaustion could distort perception. Sounds echoed strangely after midnight. Old buildings settled and groaned. Hospitals, especially, had a way of making ordinary noises feel heavier in the dark. But for 3 nights in a row, she had heard the same sound. A gurney rolling slowly down a hallway that had been sealed for 17 years. The first time, she had paused mid-chart as the metallic wheels turned somewhere beyond the locked north wing doors. She checked the corridor. Nothing. The doors were chained and marked restricted. The second night, she reviewed the security logs. No entry, no motion detection, no power fluctuations. The third night, the gurney was accompanied by humming, soft, steady, and heartbreakingly familiar. The melody was the same lullaby her mother used to hum when Elena was a child. That was when she stopped telling herself it was nothing. Just after midnight on the 4th night, Elena stood beneath a flickering parking lot lamp outside the North Wing service entrance. The air was sharp and cold. Beside her stood Darnell Price, the night security guard, broad-shouldered and steady, but visibly uneasy. On her other side was Juniper June Kwan, a records clerk whose nervous humor surfaced whenever silence lingered too long. June joked about horror movies and bad ideas, but no one laughed. Darnell swiped his keycard. The reader beeped slowly before unlocking. When the door opened, stale air drifted outward like something exhaling after years of confinement. The moment they stepped inside, the temperature dropped sharply. The smell changed too. Dust, old paper, and beneath it all, the faint residue of smoke that had never fully left. The hallway stretched long and dim ahead of them. Some overhead lights flickered, others remained dead. The quiet felt unnatural. They passed a nurse's station wrapped in yellowed plastic. Dust coated the counters. A bulletin board still displayed outdated safety posters, their corners curled. Someone had scratched out the eyes of the smiling cartoon figures. At the far end of the hall stood the sealed double doors. Above them, an old dome call light glowed faint red. Before anyone could speak, a sound drifted through the doors. Soft, metallic, a wheel turning, then another. A gurney, rolling slowly. Darnell entered the override code, and the doors creaked open. Cold air spilled out. The corridor beyond was darker. Their flashlights cut narrow tunnels through the gloom. Halfway down the hall, June's beam caught something hanging from a door handle, a hospital wristband, brittle with age. The name printed across it read Ruiz. Elena froze. The gurney sound stopped instantly. At the far end of the hall, a gurney stood in shadow. No one pushed it. The sheet atop it lay smooth, but something beneath disturbed its center slightly, as though pressure pressed upward from below. Then the intercom crackled to life. A bright, cheerful voice announced that bed transfers were in progress and instructed staff to clear the hallways. The tone was professional, calm, and horribly wrong. The gurney began to move toward them. Slow, steady, unhurried. The sheet slid downward, not falling naturally, but pulled from within. It pooled on the floor, revealing empty air where something stood. Then the shape formed, first smoke, then substance. A nurse in an outdated white uniform stained with soot stood before them. Her posture was rigid, her face too smooth, her eyes reflective like glass. Her badge read a single word, "Staff." "You left," she said softly. Elena's throat tightened. 17 years earlier, she had been in this hospital the night of the fire. Her mother, a CNA, had brought her to work because childcare had fallen through. Elena had been tucked into a pediatric room, room C17, while her mother worked. When the alarms sounded and smoke filled the halls, her mother told her to hide beneath the bed and stay low. Elena remembered coughing, waiting, listening to chaos outside the door. Then someone had come for her. A nurse. White uniform. Soft voice. The same lullaby. The nurse standing before her now spoke gently of unfinished transfers, of doors that sealed and alarms that looped endlessly. The fire had started in a supply closet, but the smoke had moved wrong. It thickened too quickly. The fire doors locked from the inside before evacuation was complete. The intercom continued announcing transfers even as systems failed. They had been trapped. Room C17 appeared at the end of the corridor as if the building itself had shifted to place it there. Inside, the room flickered between past and present. A small hospital bed sat against the wall. Beside it stood a gurney with a sheet covering an adult form. The nurse explained that Elena had been the last child moved. Her mother had carried her to C17, the farthest room from the flames, and returned to help the others. When the nurse found Elena and carried her, the doors sealed behind them. They sealed, the nurse said, because something closed them. The shadow gathered in the ceiling corner of the room as if in response. It was not smoke. It was not fire. It moved with intention. It had attached itself to the locks, to the systems, to the moment of interruption. It wanted stillness. The sheet on the gurney slowly peeled back, revealing the peaceful face of Elena's mother, preserved not by grace but by suspension. Time had held her exactly where she fell. The nurse explained that the transfer had never completed. The shadow required surrender to hold its place. It did not take, it waited for consent. The darkness lunged toward Elena. For transfer to complete, the nurse said, one must leave. Elena understood. The shadow did not want release. It wanted replacement. It had sealed the doors to trap the moment forever. But she was no longer a child hiding beneath a bed. She stepped forward and pressed her hand to the sheet. "I remember," she said firmly. The shadow recoiled. "I was not transferred," she continued. "I survived." The air trembled. The call lights down the corridor began chiming in erratic rhythm. "You sealed the doors," she said to the shadow. "Not the fire." The darkness pulsed violently. "You attached to the locks. You trapped them in a moment." The nurse's form strengthened beside her. "It requires surrender," the nurse whispered. "It cannot pull without consent." Elena closed her eyes and said clearly, "I do not consent." The flatline tone that had begun moments earlier snapped into silence. The shadow convulsed and tore upward like smoke pulled into vacuum. It streaked along the walls and vanished into the seams of the building. Metal locks disengaged one by one down the corridor. The nurse's form thinned, no longer strained but relieved. "The transfer is complete," she said softly. The gurney wheels locked for the final time. When Elena opened her eyes, the room was still. The gurney remained, but it was empty. The sheet lay folded neatly atop it. No shadow, no frost, no humming. The corridor beyond stood open and ordinary. When they returned to the active side of the hospital, dawn had begun to break. The intercom was silent. The North Wing cameras showed nothing but empty hallways. Maintenance crews would later discover that several internal fire door locks had disengaged overnight for reasons they could not explain. Outside, the early sunlight washed the brick exterior of St. Brigid Memorial in pale gold. For the first time in her life, the building did not feel like it was watching her. Elena clipped her mother's charred badge inside her uniform over her heart. The lullaby did not return. The gurney did not roll. The call lights did not chime. The unfinished transfer was complete, and when she walked back inside, nothing followed her.